Okay, worksheet 19, PLC. What's the program cycle for PLC including forces? I just covered this on the worksheet 18 video. Look at inputs, apply input forces, take the inputs and run them through the logic. That's step 3. Step 4 is apply output forces. Step 5 is update outputs, and then it goes right back around and starts over again. So that is the total scan cycle. And if you watch the video for 18, I think I just asked for scan cycle, and then I asked for scan cycle including forces. So, and I gave you the forces on that video, so it's all good. How do you determine the scan time of your program? Do you remember there's a clock icon at the top, depending on where your clock icon landed? How can scan time change as compared to program length? The longer your program, then the longer the scan time is for your PLC. There are certain instructions in the PLC that will lengthen scan time, like immediate inputs and immediate outputs, which I haven't really touched on. And I haven't touched on them because it's, you generally try and avoid them. So if you can write a program without them, that's how you do it. Use copy statement instead of individual outputs to operate a step-like cycle. Use a single timer for the normal cycle. So now I've got a video out there. I've got 2 videos out there demonstrating the copy statement. And I put it in subroutines, but if you're doing a stoplight, you don't necessarily have to have everything in subroutines, unless you want to. Again, it's up to you. You're looking for something that works, not a certain way. You'll use a single timer, and then you'll use compares, and then you will copy. You will do copy to your outputs rather than use Y1 to Y6. So you'll use a copy statement to move a word ultimately from a memory location to an output. And I think I give you enough of a hint on the copy videos. So that's 4 through 9. Completed, commented, PDF, or sketch. Most of y'all are doing pretty well getting me PDFs. You're a copy into a PDF, and that's fine. Okay. Number 10, if an input changes momentarily during the update of the outputs, does the PLC see it? And is that still true in the latest PLCs? Now, this question goes back to the actual scan cycle of a PLC. It's only looking at the inputs for a fraction of its scan time. So even though the scan time is really fast, the PLC is only looking at the inputs during a fraction of that really fast. So it is possible, even with newer PLCs, that an input could change and the PLC not see it, or not see it till it comes around and scans it. Okay? It's possible. Older PLCs have a little bit longer scan time. They're not quite as quick. They didn't have quite the microprocessing power that is out there today. So it was a little easier for it to miss an input. But it can still happen. Okay, now where I'm going with this is safety. What does this mean in terms of safety and usage of PLCs for life safety? If your input is a stop button and the operator only briefly hits the stop button, it doesn't get to hold it long enough for the scan time to recognize it, then you could have a situation where an operator hit a stop button and the PLC never saw it. Now, again, it would have to be a brief touch of the stop button, not like he pushed it, held it, and the PLC just chose to ignore it. But from a hardware standpoint, it can mean that an input can get missed in a PLC. So I'm old school, and I believe that your life safety needs to be hardwired. You need to have relays, and if you want something to stop when somebody hits a e-stop, you don't want the PLC logic to have to be a part of that. Okay? So I am on the side of, in terms of safety, if you're doing e-stops, they need to be hardwired and not PLC controlled. Now, when you get out there, you're going to see everything. And you're going to see that people are using PLC logic to stop their cycles and do their e-stops and all sorts of other stuff. But you just got to know that may not be the best practice. From the standpoint of vendors, they sell equipment now and they say these are safety rated PLCs, they will always work. Well, you've got a computer and they're telling you it's always going to work. Again, I'm old enough to be skeptical. I do realize that things are getting faster, more reliable, but I don't know. So 12 is yes or no. Is it possible for an input to actuate the PLC not see it? And that's a good question to keep in your mind, because the answer is yes. It is possible for an input to actuate and the PLC not see it. It's all because of the way it scans. And so that can happen. In which case, now you've got to associate the risk. If an input happens long enough, then yes, the PLC will definitely see it. But it's a question of your input being on, and then there's a time factor. It's got to be on for a certain amount of time. If your scan cycle is 7 milliseconds, and you know every 7 thousandths of a second, it's going to check those inputs. In which case, from our perspective, it might be hard. We might have to really work hard to fool the PLC so it wouldn't see it from a practical standpoint. And that's where it's at. That's a pretty good discussion of where things are. And now there's safety relays and everything else, and that's basically, the safety relay is basically wiring your PLC so nothing works. If the safety circuit breaks, it's disabling. That's been done other ways for years, and you can do your e-stops that way. Okay. An immediate input, and I don't remember how the click does it. Let me pull up the program and then I'll be able to see. Where is my click program? Yeah, I should have done it. There we go. That's open and existing, and I don't remember which one I just did. There's my copy program. I'll just look at that. All right. Oh, there it is. An edge contact. I don't know if that's it or not. So let's just go down here and put one in and see what we get. Contact normally open. Okay, immediate. So it's one of the things we have been ignoring every time we put in an entry. And so it's only for an X bit, it's only for a real world input. So if I put in X3, then I can make it immediate. When I check this box, what it's doing is it's going through the program. Now I told you the scan time. It looks at its inputs, updates forces. Now it's in the logic. When you check this box, Then when it's going through the logic or the third step of the scan time and it sees an X3 with immediate, it stops going through the logic long enough to go back and look at the actual condition back in the input for X3. That's what your immediate input does for you. And I'm on worksheet 19. So it's a box we check in the click, but what it does is you're in the logic and now you've got to stop that logic long enough for the PLC to go see what the input condition is. And it doesn't go to its memory table. When it scans its inputs and it updates its forces, it's putting all that in memory. And then when it goes through its logic, it's going based off what it's got in memory of what the inputs are. When you do an immediate input, what you're doing is you are telling the PLC is, I don't care what you've got in memory, I want you to go look at that actual input point. And so it would make your scan time longer if you use the immediate input a lot. And that's why I haven't made a whole lot of mention of it until now, that that you do have such a thing. And Allen Bradley has it, Siemens has it. They all have it. It would lengthen your scan time. Now, what about an immediate output? Let's look. So I'm going to put a rung in there, and then I'm going to come over here and look at my output. And there we go. If I choose Y, then the same thing happens. So if I do Y7, I can do immediate. So now when it's going through the scan time and it comes up with this output and it determines it should be on, then when you've got the box checked for immediately on, it immediately goes out and it writes that output. It doesn't wait for it to finish the logic. It doesn't wait for it to, well, I guess it would wait for it to apply the forces. And it would go out and write the logic. That's an interesting question. What happens if you force it? I'm not sure. I try and avoid immediate inputs and immediate outputs because the scan times are usually long enough you don't have to worry about it. And so when I do put the checkbox in, see there's a little I in there that tells me it's immediate, and I think there's a little I right there that tells me it's immediate as well. So interesting, interesting, interesting. So that's the immediate output. And like I said earlier, there are now safety rated PLCs. What considerations are important in utilizing one? I would go back to question 12. If there's any way possible for an input to actuate and the PLC not see it, in my mind, and you can make up your own mind, in my mind, you should not count on that PLC for safety. You should hardwire or otherwise. Now, the time factors are incredibly fast, and in real time, it's probably nearly impossible for a PLC not to see the input, but I don't know. I try not to do it. Manufacturers will tell you these are safety rated PLCs. They'll always work, even if their processor goes down. It looks at the things that you designate as safety, and that works. And what they've done is they put in redundant systems. So if something fails, they can at least try and get it to a safety standpoint. So that's what they're promising you, but some of it is marketing. Just saying. Okay. That is worksheet 19. And I thank you for watching.